Good afternoon. My name is Brian Makris. I'm President and CEO of Home Choice Lending. Today on Grit Matters, I have a good friend of mine. I've known him since, 2008, 2007, give or take. His name's Jack Lavoie, and he's a certified appraiser here in the state of New Hampshire. Jack, thanks for coming on today.
Hey, thanks, Brian. You're right. We go back a long ways.
Long time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So Jack, tell our people there a little bit about who you are, how you got into appraising,
Sure.
and the areas that you cover.
First of all, I've been appraising for 32 years, so
Wow.
I started when I was about 12.
Wow.
No, not really.
Give or take.
So I have worked the New Hampshire market, lenders, attorneys, buyers, sellers, the whole gamut for over 30 years. I've also appraised in Florida. About 2 years ago, I actually moved full-time down to Fort Myers, Florida, so I started a Southwest Florida appraisal division. We have an unbelievable team here in New Hampshire, which I manage. I'm also hands-on. I have literally made in 32 months, I've made 30 trips to New Hampshire.
Wow.
Inspected a bunch of problems. Well, some of them turn out to be problems, Brian, but properties.
Yeah.
And in fact, this afternoon I go down to Nashua and look at a complex assignment. But
Nice.
love it.
You love it. So for those of you who don't know, he's also an extremely good golfer. We've played golf a few times. Do you play more golf or less golf now in Fort Myers?
Are you ready for this? I live on a golf course, and I've never played less golf than I do now.
Wow.
But I know that I can play golf any day I want. So every day I wake up, I can't play today, but I can play tomorrow.
Right.
I can play tomorrow.
But
I work a lot, and I got to tell you, I've been very much re-energized in what I'm doing.
Let's talk about this new change. So for the first time, you actually are going to get a W-2. You've been self-employed,
I know.
your own practice for 32 years. So tell me a little bit about True Footage.
I got hired, and I told them the first thing, you realize you just hired a person that's got their first job in 32 years, right?
Yeah.
I work for a company, manage a division for True Footage, and True Footage is a unbelievable national appraisal valuation tech company. And they've went out and got the best appraisers across the country to build it. And appraisers are really hardworking. They're really good people, but the process is kind of ancient.
It's cumbersome, it's slow.
Yeah, it's slow.
clunky.
And again, not the appraisers. It's the process. So what we did was we have a system. We have some proprietary technology which we're pairing with people. See, you can have the best technology available, and that's great. And there's companies like Zillow think that's all you need, and they're wrong.
Right.
And you can have appraisers, but the perfect match is having unbelievable technology and then having a real qualified appraiser at the driver's seat. And that's what we have, So I heard something last week that in New England has the highest or the longest turnaround times of any
Region
in the country.
Wow.
And I think part of it is older properties, different, it's not cookie cutter. I think that might be part of it. It's certainly not the work ethic of the appraisers, but you can get an insurance quote in 24 hours. You can get a title, all that stuff, and we got to wait 4 weeks to get an appraisal. We did a really good job during the pandemic. The last 2 years, we kept our turnaround times 2 weeks or less. We met just about every deadline.
Wow.
However, we're looking to actually pare it down more with our technology and everything. So just love the company, love the culture.
And True Footage, you feel like it's just got that enough technology with the expertise behind it that's going to allow you guys to really kind of take this by storm?
Technology and just a team approach and process and taking every piece of the appraisal and breaking it down, and we work together and just get that thing out the door better, because we have technology to make sure we can figure out the right adjustments. Okay, we don't want to guess at whether properties should be adjusted at $75 a square foot or whether a one location is better than the other. We want to base it on data, right? We do that. We have excellent service because we have different people that will handle, making phone calls, setting up files, contacting clients, and everything. So we've just broken it down to optimize, to basically provide premium service, but not compromising, actually better quality. So,
all right, Jack, so I got a tough question for you. All right, this is one of those weird things that happens, square footage below ground. There's value there. But it's so different when it comes back on that appraisal report. And I was in a house in Bedford, New Hampshire, and it had a movie theater, it had a bar nicer than the Ritz-Carlton, it had a wine cellar. I mean, that is something that's going to be a little different, especially when the backyard is partially above ground and the front yard isn't. So how do you look at that as an appraiser and determine, that there is real value to that? That's living square footage.
I agree. It is living square footage, and it can be valuable square footage, and it can be just as valuable as the main level. There's a couple of distinctions.
Okay.
Great question, because Fannie Mae just came out with telling appraisers we had to report our GLA, gross living area, by ANSI standards. It's a standard. They do all kinds of different standards, and they happen to have a measurement system for houses. So in reporting, just reporting only, on the GLA line of the appraisal, we're only allowed to put in the square footage that meets all the criteria, 100% above ground.
100%.
Well, 100%, you could have 1,000 square feet below, and if a portion of it is below, it doesn't count in that area of the report.
Okay.
And there's some other aspects as well, such as slope ceilings and what counts. But here's the thing, it's a reporting basis only. So let's say there's a home that is just about all above grade. Mm-hmm. But we cannot count it in the, so we reduce the square footage on the main line.
Yep.
And we go ahead and we assign it value in another section of the appraisal. And it's the appraiser discretion based on the data.
Quality.
If it's quality and it's sunlight, and here's the thing, it's not a fancy term, but this is comes down to this. If a typical buyer comes in and they say, wow, this place is awesome down here, this is really good livable area,
Sure.
It can have just as much value as the official GLA. That's creating a lot of confusion, because you might get a borrower or a broker, especially if an appraisal comes in low, right? Mm-hmm. Then everyone's mad, and things happen. And they say, wait a minute, I got a 2,000 square foot house, and the appraiser, he says that's 1,200 square feet.
Right.
But down bottom, there's an 800 square foot area. And I do see that many of my colleagues kind of use old adjustments, kind of rules of thumbs that are really outdated, $10, $15 a square feet. Every adjustment you make, what adjustments are is when we account for a difference, they should be specific to that property. In other words, does this finished basement or this slightly below grade property, area, how does it contribute to the subject property? A lot. They utilize it to exit to their patio, to the pool. They have movie theater. They have great sunlight, versus maybe an older home that's got that dark stairway down there, and that probably doesn't add much value.
Right.
So,
it's four corners all on the ground. You got your tiny little 12-inch by 22-inch window that you can peek out. That's different than a walkout basement, going to a patio, going to a bar that has a bar, going to a bar that has a bar, that has a movie theater, that has the sound systems. Because I had a customer that the estimated value the estimated cost was $250,000 in his basement. And that's something that you wouldn't want to do a drive-by appraisal on. You need to see that.
Need to see it, and there's probably a good chance that it's still somewhat of a over improvement. They probably is not going to get $250,000.
Although I buy it because of that.
Right.
Basement.
Well, you might be, but then that's a different story.
We even had a sports ticker that had all the games.
Oh, that's awesome!
And all that was live, that was tied to his Wi-Fi, that gave us every game, so you could see like the Celtics or the Bruins or whatever was playing the football game.
Right.
And it gave you all the scores of all the games. I was like, wow,
that's awesome.
You have to see that.
I think the biggest takeaway is, how does it contribute to a property? Can I give you an example of what I mean by that?
Yeah, please.
How much is a garage worth? Okay. They ask me. It's like, well, let me ask you this. Are we talking about a modest 1,000 square foot 1950 homes in downtown Manchester where that one garage may be worth something, right? 1 versus 2 or 2 versus 3. Let's say they have 3 garages. I would argue that third garage for that little house probably doesn't add any value to it. Okay. What are the chances of someone needing a third garage? Now let's go to a neighborhood. Well, we're taping in Bedford, New Hampshire.
Yeah.
Some of those large 4,000 square foot homes
Sure.
have garages, and maybe one doesn't have a garage. There might be a very large difference. It might be $15,000, $20,000 worth of difference because 3-car garages in that market is the norm. Both garages,
Right.
one's nearly worthless,
Sure.
and one's 20,000 because it's how it fits to the property.
Okay.
So
Okay, gotcha. What about pools? Do pools add any value? Somebody drops, 200 grand in nice pavers and pools, and there's waterfalls and rock formations around it. Does, I know, hey, you say if you're going to invest any money, kitchen first, pool's probably somewhere on the bottom of that line. But does that add value to the home?
it's funny, I appraise in Florida, and in an area where pools, you get almost dollar for dollar. It is about $70,000 to $80,000 to put in a full pool package.
Yep.
And they literally contribute just about that much.
Wow.
In New Hampshire,
4-month
it's
season? Short?
it's short season, and it is in the best case scenario, it doesn't add anywhere near the cost of putting it in. Hey, if you want to put in a pool because you're going to enjoy it for years.
Correct.
Absolutely. This is not, do not put in a pool. But if you're going to put in nice in-ground with a package, and you got the deck and the lighting and all that stuff, and it's going to cost you $75,000 to $100,000, you'd be lucky if you got 20% of that back.
Okay.
Again, it fits the property. If it's a home that's set up for entertaining, outdoor, in the summertime you got outdoor kind of living space, or it's just that type of home, then a pool will contribute. If it's just your regular cookie cutter home that, oh, by the way, it happens to have a pool,
Right.
it may not. But I will say this, demand for pools, cost of installing pools has gone up.
Sure.
During this pandemic, people are now looking at staycations. Is that the
Yeah,
right word?
yeah.
Making their home their castle.
Yeah.
So pools, while tough to exactly measure, are probably worth more today than they were 2 years ago, but still only
Fractions on the dollar.
20% of the cost. And by the way, that's someone who actually put in a pool, used it for 4 years, sold it, and
Yeah.
learned that lesson.
Yeah,
but
no.
I knew it, but we bought it for our kids so they can enjoy it. So.
Of course.
Or had it built. So.
I love it. So Jack, I got another question here. Okay, this is one of those things. So first of all, desktop appraisals are now back, meaning that you don't have to
Yes.
physically go in the home. And then appraisal waivers. It's kind of hit or miss with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. They're the ones that drive the boat
Right.
and tell us if whether we have an appraisal waiver or not. Can you touch base on your thought about it? Are you happy the desktops are back? Do you think they're still efficient? And then touch on the appraisal waivers.
Sure. As far as appraisal waivers, we don't get involved in that. That's not that we have no input on that. I assume on your end it's low risk loans, high estimated loan to value based on
Correct.
historical records. Something. I'm an appraiser, but my editorial would be if someone's got a $500,000-ish house and they want to borrow $100,000, and what are they?
agree.
They don't need me to go tell you. So I'm not.
Yeah.
Now, desktops, tell you want to start an argument, you get a bunch of appraisers together and talk about desktops.
Yeah. So what is a desktop appraisal for those people that don't know?
Thank you. Desktop would be, I, as an appraiser, sit from my desk and just gather third-party information. Perhaps I'm looking at listing photos, aerial maps, speaking with different people, a floor plan that's provided to me. In technology, you understand the subject property. You're going on some assumptions because you're not going into it. The appraiser has to determine that there's enough reliable quality information to be able to proceed with the desktop. And basically, we do all the same steps as an appraiser. We're going to go and fill out the information, rate the condition, rate the quality from the desk, from pictures, from all different sources, tax cards. We're going to go and we're going to search multiple listings for similar comps. If I'm appraising a 1,600 square foot Cape in the south end of Manchester, I'm going to go on and look for comparables. I'm going to write my report just as if I inspected the property. However, there's some assumptions. I'm assuming that the information provided to me is accurate.
Gotcha.
But as a professional, I need to do my due diligence, or at least protect the client and make sure that I think the sources are reliable. If I go in and the pictures aren't great and the floor plan is unclear, I can't just say, oh, I think it's average condition. I have to have good information.
You're signing your name on it.
I am signing my name. And you know something, if it turns out that the information is not 100% accurate, that's okay. That's part of disclosures. But I can't rely on something that I, from the beginning, think it's not reliable.
So you're not even doing a drive-by, because during COVID, people were doing drive-bys. They're taking street shots. But once you look at the photos and you do your due diligence, the process of the comps in all the surrounding area, that's exactly the same?
It is. You know, the Uniform Standards of Professional Appraisal Practice, we call it USPAP. That's what we write our appraisals to, those standards. Does not require a physical inspection of the site. And however, lenders, obviously, they want you to go to the property. Yeah. They want you to get as much information as possible. And if I was lending the money, I certainly would want to.
It makes sense.
I'd probably get 2 appraisals.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the desktop appraisals can be a great tool. They're certainly faster.
Yep. But
there's a risk. We price them a little bit less, and I'll tell you why. You do save a little bit more on you save time on the inspection. Mm-hmm. However, because you're not physically there, some of the other data gathering takes a little bit longer. I think it's the same. I don't think it's a fee issue. I think it's still around the same fee, and it probably should be.
Sure.
But a desktop, you don't have to worry about someone's schedule. You don't have to worry about meeting the broker or the borrower or schedules. You can literally do them at 10 o'clock at night if you need to. So I think there's a place for it. I don't think it'll ever get to the point where it's the product. I think for a 20% down borrower who's got great credit, that the waiver's not appropriate, but I think the desktops are good in some areas. So
yeah, so we've been lucky with a lot of cash out refinances. People are like, hey, my house is worth $500 and I want to pull out $50,000 to put a pool in.
Sure.
And their loan to value is at 50% or 60%. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac's coming back, no appraisal needed, and we can literally close that loan. In fact, we did one in the state of New Hampshire, 62 minutes from when we submitted to underwriting, and it was clear to close. Literally same day, clear to close.
What took you so long?
I know, right? I want to get to 61 minutes now. Yeah. So it will speed that process up, and I think just the market conditions right now have kind of really helped you guys out. You guys were getting crushed with refinances and purchases all happening at the same time. Do you feel like turn times, even though you said New England, the turn times are a little longer than some of the other regions in the country, but are they better now than they were a couple months ago? Do you feel like, hey, I got some breathing room now?
Oh, yeah. I mean, because of the interest rates going up and the refinance market pretty much gone for now.
Yeah.
There's less appraisals, so I would think most appraisers have a little less volume and therefore turning them around faster. I don't think that's going to last very long as far as the volume. I think when the market moves, whether it corrects a little bit or people say, okay, something, they've gone up, but now they're stabilizing a little bit and they may not come down, and for a long time we still want to buy, and guess what? We still need to refinance, and just because we need to, whether it's pulling cash out. So I think it's a temporary time period on that, but who knows? I'm not here to predict the future.
Right.
But yeah.
All right, Jack. So here's another tricky question. So sometimes you have houses out there and it's sitting on a mountaintop. You have 40 acres and you can see 100 miles, the sunset and the sunrise, and it's amazing. And then on the same street, it could be 3 or 4 houses down, but it's a little lower on the hill. It's not on the hilltop, but it's a comp because it's the same square footage and it's sold, a month ago. How do you, as an appraiser, determine, this one, it's almost the same builder or could be the same builder. Where do you come up with, hey, that's not the right comp for here? And are you allowed to leave? I've always said, and I don't know how it's true, but you try to find something within the last 90 days within a 3-mile radius of the subject property. Is that still the same?
No.
Okay,
I think it's great if you can get for cookie cutters, the more recent closed sales you get and the closer in proximity is always a good guideline. But you're going to pick, we're talking about a complex property here that's unique. We're going to find the best properties indication. If I have to go 10 miles, I have to go back a year and a half and account for the difference in time. See, the easiest adjustment to make is market conditions. There's so much data that you can extract to say, hey, this home that's exactly like it sold a year and a half ago for X amount of, and the market has come up 30%, therefore you can appreciate it. So that's always an easy fix of going back in time.
Okay.
You know,
can you go to a different town?
You can go to a different town. The first thing you have to identify, though, is, let's use your example of the mountaintop.
Yeah.
Somehow I always seem to get the tough ones.
Yeah.
Right? You have that unique property. And the first thing you got to say is, what was the main characteristic? Why the buyers who would look at this property and ultimately buy it, why would they buy this? Is it because it's in a particular town? Is it a particular size? Is it because it had a pool? For that, it's probably the view, the privacy, the seclusion. So then we say, okay, is the person looking for that house, are they just looking in Gilmington, New Hampshire?
Right.
Or New Boston, New Hampshire? Probably not with that kind of specialty. So would somebody from New Boston say, hey, I might go look in Henniker or Mont Vernon, someplace where you have similar mountains or something like that.
Yeah.
And then maybe you do have that comp but it doesn't have quite a view. Maybe it has very limited view, but same builder. So you might go and really dig, and it's a lot of work goes into these complex assignments. And what I might do is I would go further away, maybe in a different part of the state, and to try to find situations where there was homes with views and no view, or tremendous differences. And maybe it's a 20% difference or 10% difference. And that's knowledge. And then maybe over in this particular town, maybe it's too far away to use actual comp in the report, but the data, you look over there and say, hey, over in the Monadnock Mountain area, these homes they're on the top of the mountain, this home sold, and by the way, it sold for $200,000 more than the one that was halfway down.
Gotcha.
So you start putting this puzzle. So now I'm going to use that. I might use that comp that's not as good of a view, but I have a basis to say, okay,
there is
20% difference, because of based on this mark, based on this comparable analysis I did, another one over this part, and you put it together, and you come up with that adjustment. See, an appraiser never has to prove, because I can never prove to you how much your house is worth.
I know.
I absolutely can never do that. My job is to support my conclusion.
Gotcha.
So by doing that work and to coming up with the data and analyzing it, and again, back to my company, we're a data-driven company. We don't want to guess on what square footage is and baths and so forth. We want to use data tools to make sure that we have the fairest, most accurate appraisals in the business, and it's not a just guessing,
Gotcha.
and so.
Gotcha. That's a perfect answer. And so ultimately you've got to make sure that you're getting like, kind, and quality. Yeah. So the neighbor's house that is, below, down the bottom of the hill, even though it's the same builder, doesn't have that same value because.
Correct. Yeah. It's the, if that feature, if the fact that it sits, common sense would tell you if someone has that view that it's worth something. But if there's data that shows that, and there most likely is, and that's how you arrive at that difference. It's not guessing. Sometimes it's really hard. It's not a perfect science. You may look at a couple of these different examples and the indicators might be all over the place. One might say it's a $50,000 difference. One says it's $150. One says it's $90. Well, we at least know it's between $50 and $150, even though that's not exactly, rather than just saying, I'm going to give it $25,000 or $200,000 because I'm guessing at it. So.
Right. All right, great. All right, so Jack, I got one more question here, and then we'll wrap this segment up.
Saving the best for last.
Yeah.
Is that what you're doing?
So appraisers sometimes they just come in low, and sometimes whether they missed a comp and they made a mistake, or they missed a bathroom, or they missed square footage, or the value isn't. It's really tough to keep everybody in the transaction happy, buy side, sell side. But sometimes you have the listing agent screaming at the top of her lungs saying this isn't right. You got the buyer's agent screaming at the top of her lungs, there's no way. The buyer looked at 25 houses. This is far nicer than all of the others. And so the buyer's saying it, the buyer's agent saying it, everyone's saying you're off. How do you guys handle that? Recertification of value.
Okay.
And so many appraisers, I feel like, will send over, and we're allowed to challenge comps. We can't challenge value, but we're allowed to say, did you miss this one? Did you know that was a foreclosed home? Did you do your due diligence on your side? And how do you handle that so that we can feel confident that they're not just like, it's just someone else complaining again?
Sure. Let me just go back to the first thing you said. You said appraisals come in low.
Yeah.
Sometimes they don't come in low. They come in under purchase price. There's a difference.
Fair, I agree.
It's
a great way of putting it.
Right.
Thank you.
It's use that term low, but hey, my company, we come in low often, right, in this market.
So Jack, here's the $1 million question. We run into so many situations in today's market. People are outbidding each other, 50, 60, 75 grand, 100 grand. Then you've got listing agents standing up at the top of their lungs saying, when this appraisal, the value came in low, it's off by 60 grand, by 50 grand. Sure. And you got a listing agent, a buyer's agent, even the buyer, the sellers, everyone's saying there's no way this is right. So we're not allowed to challenge value, but we can challenge comps.
Sure.
So how do you take that recertification of value? Because we're like, all right, guys, we've got like 19 minutes. Get me all the comps, get me the supporting data. Let's put this together. Let's send it over to the appraiser. Maybe he missed something. Maybe he didn't realize that was a foreclosed home. Maybe he didn't realize it had no sheetrock on the inside, or was missing plumbing, so or is dated and never updated. How does that, what's the best approach to you guys? How do you guys take that? I feel like some appraisers are like, screw you, don't even question my stuff, and they do take offense to it. So
I've heard.
Yeah. So how do you handle that? How does your company handle that?
Sure.
How do you handle it as an appraiser to make sure that in off camera you'd mentioned, well, it doesn't come in under value. It's you used a different term.
Yeah, we were talking. I said it isn't. I don't like the word low because you're saying that it should be higher.
Correct.
And sometimes the property is just not worth what somebody is paying for it.
I agree with that.
And if we just went by the purchase price all the time, you wouldn't need appraisals, right?
Right. Fair enough.
You go by the contract price and that's it. Hey, listen. There are oftentimes you do get a request, a revision request, or a reconsideration of value.
Yeah.
I can tell you how we handle it and how I recommend and the proper way to do it, and the proper way not to do it. As far as what some of my colleagues, I know I've heard that people get offended and everything. We never get offended. I look at it this way: I'm a buyer who wants to buy that property. I'm a real estate broker who wants to get a commission. I'm a loan officer who wants to get a commission. Yeah. You all have a stake in it.
Absolutely.
And you just want to make sure you got it right.
Right.
And there's a difference between pressuring the appraiser and asking for a revision, reconsideration of value. That's not pressure. That's just saying, are you sure?
Right.
So the way to do it is this. First of all, as an appraiser, my only person I can communicate with is the client, the lender. So I would recommend a buyer through their broker, or if it's a refinance, the buyer. Yep. I mean the borrower, and you just send your thoughtful reasons through email to you. Let's say it's you. You're not insulting the appraiser. It might be something like this: "Thank you very much for coming out to my home. Appreciate your time. However, I noted some things that I'd like you to consider." They may be factual things like, "We have that you missed the bathroom," or it might be, "This comp is better than that." Put it in there, let it run through the system, let the lender look at it and say, is this a reasonable request? Assuming it is, it comes to the appraiser. And here's what we do at that point. We look at it, and we'll look at it if they say there's a home that down the street that's sold, we'll look at it.
Yeah.
We have missed it, probably not, but
Mistakes happen.
Absolutely. A lot of times what we find is it's a house that's a lot better quality.
Sure.
It's bigger, it's newer, but the proper way to do it in the conscientious thing to do is to write it back and say, okay, on your first point, yes, you have casement windows and not double hung. We've corrected that, right? Make a mistake.
Sure.
And then for comparables, we'll just say we looked at them. Here's the reason why we did not use it, and I'm not including it in the second round is because it's A, B, and C. We always give a reply. It's not a lengthy reply.
Sure.
We've already done our job, but something, if a broker was to point out a comp and it was a better comp, or they pointed out something about a comparable that we used that maybe we had it wrong, maybe it was not as good a condition as the MLS photos indicated, it was staged. I would rather get it right the second time.
Yeah.
We want to get it right.
Yeah, we want it to be right.
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
And something, if by the way, it may not get, it still may come in low, right? Or maybe not. It may come in a contract. But I, as a professional that signs my name and that cares about the product go out, I'm not perfect, and
Sure.
I would rather get it right and eat humble pie. But most of them, unfortunately, most of the requests that come over like that are usually, hey, you stupid appraiser. How can we hear this all the time.
I'm sorry that you do.
Here's the thing, Brian. Think of the appraiser's job here. We're appraising a property in, what's today, beginning of May. So I have three properties that sold in April that say it's 300, 310, 320. So the listing agent, smart, says, trend's going up. We're going to list it for 350.
Yeah.
And then they put it in the market and they get 5 offers at 389.
Sure.
My sales are still 310 or 320.
Sure.
So it's not that easy. Now, what a good appraiser will do is he or she will look at all of the market trends and not just say, oh, I think the value has come up, 0.5% a month or 1% a month. It might be in those particular 3 months, like this year in March, it is escalated to the point where it might be 3, 4, 5% a month appreciation. You can apply that to the sales if you can prove it or support it's a better word.
With data.
With data. And there's a lot of different ways to do it. We use Excel, multiple regression, MLS information, and it's not just, guessing.
Yeah.
Still, after that, at the end of the day, you take a sale in January and you appreciate it market data, February market data, and all of a sudden we're selling for 380, but the adjusted comps are 350, 360, 365. That's what it is.
It is, yeah.
But you've given it a fair look at it, and your conclusions, a good appraiser will be data-driven and not just, casually. I will say this, I have never, in 32 years, met an appraiser who wants the property to come in low.
I believe that.
We are independent. We are supposed to be unbiased. However, we don't want them to come in low either, because guess what happens? There's more work. There's more people ticked off. And up at the state board, half of the complaints up there aren't necessarily warranted. The only reason why they get reported is because it came in low.
Yeah.
It's not because it was poor quality.
Right.
Sometimes they are.
Sure. No, I get it. It's a tough spot, and ultimately, we want it to be right. We want it to be right. We want the seller to get what's owed to them. We want the buyer to get the right price and believe in what we have. So Jack, I got to tell you, there's 100 more questions that I have for you, but I want to wrap it up. I want to first thank you for your friendship.
Oh yeah,
I want to thank you for staying in touch and driving by properties in Florida, because eventually I'll be there as well. Can't wait to play golf with you, I'm so excited for your new your true footage, your new exciting opportunity there. And thank you so much for just coming in. You have to come on again, because I literally have another 100 questions, because I pulled my hair out over appraisals before.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
we're on the same side. We just want it to be right.
One of the things that I get to do with this company is I get to teach and mentor and bring people into the business and share my experience. So whenever I can come on, whenever I come on to a something like this where I can just talk about it, I enjoy it. So I probably enjoyed it more than you did. So.
I love it. So Jack, thanks so much for coming on today.
Brian. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.